Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book. You know what time it is. Talking to you guys today, yes, about Put a Ring on It, but we're dealing specifically with Larhonda and Sean. They talked about divorce, and they had different views on, well, I won't even say different views, had slightly different views on divorce and how they saw it. And I want to kind of break down a little bit of their conversation and what it really meant and why it was a very important conversation for anybody who's dating, anybody who's going to get married. And also as well, I want to break down a little bit about her date, because between her and Derek, there was a key, I don't know why I went key. There's a key part in the conversation where it was spoken about fragility and pressure on someone to make a decision, and I want to break down some things there as well. So if you are new to this channel and you want to see more great content like this, make sure you share, you like, and you click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. And for those of you who are returnees, you already know what it is, baby. You got the minerals, you got the minerals. So let's get into this particular video as well. So we're gonna play a little bit of clip, and then we'll get into it.
And we can try for the 7. Okay.
This is a big one for me. Do you believe in divorce?
Depends on the situation.
Depends on the situation.
I have.
Pause it. I want to just get into this. I want to just scoot it slightly back, right? Because I want you to watch the smile that comes on Larhonda's face, because we already know if you listen to her question, it didn't come straight. It came straight, but it didn't come straight. I mean, it wasn't just a question. She prefaced it, by saying, this is very important to me. Okay, so she made sure that question that's coming, listen, it's not just a normal question. It's very important to me to know that we're on the same wavelength on this subject. Let's listen one more time again.
Do you believe in divorce?
Now, it's very interesting because I rarely pick up on Larhonda's body language, because she's quite reserved, and she keeps herself very, very cool. We don't see much emotional leaks with Larhonda, but I must confess I haven't paid as much as I needed to body language wise to Larhonda and Sean, as otherwise would have spotted some things that she does recently over the course of the 8 weeks that we've been watching the show. But there's a little cheeky smile that comes up just as she's asking that question, and I want to see when he responds.
Depends on the situation.
Depends on the situation.
I have.
It's interesting that she says, depends on the situation. Big smile came across her face, and she begins obviously to note down, because obviously they're gonna try and compare, right? But what's really interesting about this situation between her and Sean in this conversation is because of their positions. Now, I'm not gonna say it's a big thing. I'm gonna say this strictly, that I think just listening to Larhonda and Sean, I think for Larhonda, hearing him say, not a direct, I don't believe in divorce, I think it's not a red flag or anything. It was simply just a little twizzle. Yeah? A little twizzle. A little spark, a little tinge in her, you know what I'm saying, that made her go, okay, I want to know what you're saying here, because I genuinely believe there's no divorce, because I think we can work things out. And what she may be thinking, maybe thinking is, okay, if you're giving me an excuse, you're also asking for an open back door. Bearing in mind, obviously, because of the history of Sean too, she is speaking from a place of, I believe, I don't want to say necessarily health, but there is some kind of healthiness, I guess, to her decision making in terms of, I don't believe in divorce, but there can also be some unhealthiness. We don't really know much about Larhonda enough to say that for sure. But what we can say about Sean is, because we've had story upon story upon story about where he's coming from, his background, his father, everything like that, we know there's a little bit of apprehension when it comes to marriage due to what he saw and experienced. And actually, he goes on to explain that by saying, I don't do this ride or die stuff. But who said Larhonda was thinking ride or die, right? Surely your relationship should tell you about the kind of person that you're with, and whether it would be a ride or die mentality that person might be on, right? Because whenever let's say I had a conversation when I was going to potentially get married to one of my exes in the past, I didn't ever think, let's have a conversation about what's going to make us get divorced. Rather, what conversation we would be having is, okay, here are the terms and conditions of our relationship, what we expect, right? Our standards, right? Let's never be in a place where we're insulting each other. Let's never be in a place where we're doing evil to each other. But we never mention, oh, this is gonna happen, I'm gonna get divorced. Like, I never really did that. I appreciate though that it's good to lay down what you think are points that could trigger a divorce. I think that's important too. But I don't know if you kind of approach it by saying, I don't believe in divorce, I don't believe in not divorcing. I think you kind of say, I don't believe in divorce. But what I would say is, obviously, I expect that we have respect for one another. I expect that we don't cheat on another, because then that will make my decision very difficult to go ahead with, right? And I think that's a different way of approaching it, but that just could be me and semantics and putting a certain spin on it. Do you know what I mean? I guess I'm kind of looking into it with Sean, and I'm thinking to myself, is the past kind of playing up with Sean? Let's listen to a bit more to what he said as well.
In situations that did need divorce. One thing that was really...
The smile went from Larhonda. It went. And I think it went because, like I said again, she may be thinking, not always may, maybe thinking this could be an exit point for Sean again. This could be another excuse for him not to go through the ring of fire once again. It's another excuse not to get married. And it could be that fear factor, you know. And sometimes when someone brings fear, it can be a little bit annoying, because it's like, every time you bring fear, like, let's look at it positively. Let's not be a negative Nancy. Let's not be pessimistic Percy. You know what I mean? Let's be positive Percy. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that could be something that was playing on her mind. I don't really know, because Larhonda hasn't given us enough, and the show hasn't given us enough, right? I'm not sure which way around it is. Either Larhonda hasn't given us enough, or the show hasn't given us enough of what Larhonda really is. What's her background? Does anybody know? Does anybody know what happened to her background? We don't know. Right? And because of that, it's a difficultness to really assess where Larhonda really stays. We've made deductions several times about the power dynamics between her and Sean. But in terms of really getting to grips to deepness of Larhonda, we haven't got enough information. We've got about Jess. We've got a little bit about Alexia. We've got someone Smoke. Not too tough on Smoke, actually, too tough. We've got someone Sean. We've got someone on Eric a little bit as well. But we haven't really, in 8 weeks, got about Larhonda. Now, I don't know if it's because of the dad situation taking over the edits and stuff like that for them, but we don't get to hear much about Larhonda and who she really is. But let's have a little more.
Important for me was divorce and just not being ride or die, because I've seen that people have, stayed in horrible, toxic situations.
So again, he mentions about the fact that I don't want to just ride or die situation. And I think, again, he could just be mentioning this to make it known to the person, hey, look, I don't believe in divorce, but really what I'm saying is I don't want to be a ride or die kind of divorcee, right? I don't want to be that ride or die, marriage person where we don't quit and we just stay together for staying sake, like the old generation might stay together even though they're absolutely unhappy. All right, they could be absolutely unhappy, absolutely burning inside, absolutely despising the person right in front of them, but because of old school mentality where it's like you don't divorce, you don't come out of relationships, they stayed in them. And so he may be talking about those things because that's what he's witnessed in his family. So I'm not making it hard and fast that it is one way, because we understand that he may be speaking from a place of just trying to establish, hey, this is what I don't want to be entering into, you know what I mean, in our particular relationship as well. So I want to give him that space to do that. So
just because they're married.
So for me, ideally not.
So
now, isn't it interesting that Larhonda goes, ideally not the marriage, right? She doesn't want to explain what could be points of breaking up, because for her in her head, I don't think there are points of breaking up. Like, well, in the sense of, I'm not thinking about those points. Those points don't come to mind. And why would they? Right? Because we're going to be communicating.
How does that look? How does that show up?
I don't think it's hiding the fact that there will be disagreements, but being able to effectively communicate how to get through it.
Now, if you listen to the tone, it kind of actually went a matter of fact. I mean, if you're then you're communicating, we're going to get through it. And it's like, you know, with Larhonda, I think she doesn't see the same perspective as Sean. They have a slight difference. It's not major. It's just that for her, it's like, I don't see a door. Sean does. Okay, Sean sees a door. Larhonda does not. Okay, that's why she didn't give any. That's why she didn't give really any excuse about. Oh well, maybe it could be. If I agree with you, if it was cheating, she didn't give any of those. And the reason why, because most of us actually don't think about those things being deal breakers at the time. Maybe that's something that's a failure on our department to be like, hey, look, and I say that because I think everybody knows social rules, right? When we get together and we're dating, I don't expect you to cheat on me either. And you didn't cheat on me in that time. So why would I think that I would need to say it when we get married? I hear that too. That's also a point as well. I want to talk a little bit more about their date that she had with Derek as well, because I think there were some really important parts that were kind of spoken on that I think were interesting. Right? Let me get it up and you'll see what I'm saying. Right? Okay, let's play.
Of respect and also just looking to grow those things. And at the same time, I don't think everyone is ready to pull the trigger when they are.
So you got to give them a little nudge a little bit.
Hopefully they receive those things.
Now she's talking about obviously marriage, I'm guessing, and talking about how some people might need a little bit of or he adds on that some people might need a little bit of a nudge to get to where they need to get to in terms of obviously them getting to that place of marriage. Now, what's really interesting is the answer that comes, I kind of guess, after it. She doesn't actually give a definitive yes to say, actually, yeah, you know what? They do need that push and come to an ultimatum, right? She kind of leaves it open. And I think Larhonda does a good job of trying to protect her partner. She's a protective mother cub kind of energy. Doesn't want to expose him kind of thing. But I think we can see the cogs kind of turning. We'll play a little bit more and we'll have a discussion more.
If not,
that's where I come in, right?
Now she said, if not, and it's not really definitive. Okay, so if that person doesn't want to be pushed towards marriage and they don't want to go there, if not, it's not okay. Listen, if they don't get there, then if they don't do that, then I know what I'm gonna do. It's kind of left open, which is almost like I'm not gonna put that pressure on that person, which is really I believe backed up and evidenced later on, where he talks about fragility and talks about the pressure that you apply and ultimatums and the way she defended that point. And we're going to get there in a second too. I don't want to rush ahead of ourselves. Let's play a bit more.
Right.
That's where I come into play.
From a maturity standpoint, Derek definitely seems to be the type of person to, if he knows what he wants, he's willing to get it. I think that's really what attracted me.
Boom. Now, I wanted to say this as well, because remember I always talked to you guys about men that are decisive. Okay, men that know what they want. It's attractive. Yeah, ladies like the man that knows what he wants. He's not gonna do indecision. He's here to be surgical. He's gonna choose. Right? Ladies find that attractive. Right? Look, listen to what she actually said. Now, because we know in the upper episode she said she wasn't really attracted to him, but what is she attracted to? Because women are different from men. Men need the physical. Most men will need the physical. They're not going to move. They're not going to find you attractive over time. Sorry, darling. It doesn't work that way for the men. Okay? Now, she can be willing to move because what's going to attract her is the intrinsic qualities. Okay? That's the internal quality, the attitude, the values. And when he said, listen, when he's talking, and even his body frame, if you look at his body frame when we see it in a second, let's play a little bit of clip.
To Derek the most with Sean, he's definitely a lot more reserved.
I think
even his body frame is wide, right? So physically he's dominating, but it's the fact that he's never shaking, never shivering, and never shirking, right? And as she's leaning forward, he's a bit more. He holds a good frame. Right, he doesn't sit back like this or do that. He holds a good amount of frame. It's not too assertive. It's just in the right place. It's a good balance. But what's really interesting is the fact that she said about the attraction was because of the fact he's decisive and he knows what he wants. That's what she doesn't get from Sean right now, it seems, right? And this is the 80-20 kind of rule where it's like someone partner will be your 80, but someone else will be the extra 20 that you wanted. It's not necessary. Honestly, it's not. But it's whether this 80 that he's given her, is he going to make sure that he's going to enter the sphere of marriage? Because that's what she wants. But she left it open by saying, if not, then she didn't say anything about it. She didn't make a determination. She didn't give an ultimatum. She doesn't want to give an ultimatum. In fact, I don't think she wants to rock the boat. Rock the boat, baby. I don't think she wants to rock the boat because I think it's a sweet deal right about now. Someone who takes care of your emotional needs, somebody who loves and cares for you, somebody who runs after you. I mean, marriage is one thing, but this is a guy, Sean seemingly, who's after you, wants you, desires you, cares for you, treats you emotionally well. There's nothing really wrong with Sean apart from the fact that he's a bit needy and can sometimes feel a need to slightly emotionally manipulate with some of his behaviors, right? But he's not a bad guy, so it can be very difficult to try and leave it alone. Although we know some certain moments where she has said, if you leave here with someone else, then it is what it is, basically. And it's like, oh, okay, you know, she could be open to that. Hey, I don't know, man. It's mad, man. Yes, yeah, it's mad.
That you're at the place right now where you can't expect an ultimatum, like, okay, what are we doing? You know, there's no need in wasting any more of your time.
But you also don't want to pressure someone into...
Why not?
Pause. Love that moment. He says, obviously, ultimatum, you know, it's ultimatum time, blah, blah, blah. She said, obviously, you don't want to pressure people. She immediately fought back. She immediately put the territory barriers back up. She put the territory barkers back up. Yep, she said, listen, no, I'm hearing you, but some people, and she did it politely, some people just not them. It's just not them. It's not them. They just don't, you know what I mean? That energy doesn't work for them. And so she immediately put up the barriers to defend Sean, because that's what they're talking about, right? And because he's saying that he's indecisive. And Mama Cub said, only I can talk about Sean. You can't. Okay, I'm gonna defend my boy to the hills. And I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna hit on that. I love a good teamwork.
People are fragile.
You're thinking you're with someone that's that fragile that would break if you apply pressure?
Not necessarily.
Darling, let me tell you something. Not necessarily, it's not no. Not necessarily, it's not no. What you're saying is, I don't want to be rude, so not necessarily. Okay? All right? We know. So what you're actually saying is, Sean is fragile, right? You don't want to be the one that breaks him. But darling, you're going to break him if he does not come and give you what you want. Or you're going to end up staying in and you know, I can't see Larhonda being in such a case, but you just never know in this day and age when you want something so bad, that staying in a relationship for so long that you're in a 10-year, 14-year, 15-year, 20-year affair and you never get married because it's comfortable. Right? So the truth of the matter is, I hear her defense. I get it. Like it's not necessarily fragile, but I also understand that, listen, he's talking truth right now. A man is decisive, right? And we're not getting that from him yet.
Most of the guys know that their time is possibly limited and they have to do what they need to do to capture the woman that they want.
That's real, though. So I'm not mad at that.
Of course you're not mad at that, Larhonda, because he's talking sense and he's talking truth, right? A man is decisive in what he wants, okay? And that pressure he's putting on her, I don't think she usually gets that pressure on her, right? Like all the other guys have put pressure in terms of, like, you know, them trying to move to her, but he's actually applying pressure of logic by saying, look, you're looking for marriage. You're actually looking for marriage. Why is there not an ultimatum? And maybe there's an issue as well for Larhonda in the sense of, by him putting pressure on, why haven't you put an ultimatum there? It's almost like, you know, there's a little bit of a critique on her own decision making. Because remember, I feel like Larhonda's in control. So maybe this could be that could be an indictment against her decision making of why she hasn't forced the issue now, right? Could be. She may be feeling like, why are you questioning my decision internally? I'm talking about. You know what I mean? But yeah, again, listen, I think to myself, you don't want to be, they're already 2 years in, I think, or a year or two, is it a year or two they're in? You don't want to be getting to the third year, fourth year, fifth year and still not asking that question. Ultimatums are important when we realize that we're at a position where we can move forward or we can not move at all and be done. Sometimes we're in that space, we're in the land of make a decision, okay? And quality men make decisions, okay? Guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure to like, share, subscribe. Click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. We appreciate it.
You know what time it is.